the best way to get really, really good at something and to master something is to copy the people who have already mastered it before you. And that basically means that you have to copy or imitate or replicate what the masters have already done. This might conflict with another video I've made that says don't steal, but hear me out. Okay, a lot of people, when they are using a camera or they're in editing software, 3D modeling, After Effects, whatever, they get access to these tools and they play around with the tools and they see the kind of stuff that they can make. And they say like, oh, I can do this cool vignette, or I can do this 3D text, or I can do this neat composite with some stuff, or I can do this color grade and it looks really cool because like it's brand new and they just got access to this tool set. And it comes out looking amateur. And the reason for that is because rather than look at what other people had done that had made it to kind of that primetime spotlight, stuff on TV, stuff in movies, stuff on the internet that's like really well done, that you look at it, you're like, man, that looks, holy crap, that's awesome. Rather than copy that stuff, they played around with the tool set and they kind of spit something out and they're like, that looks cool, right? And what ends up happening is it all looks amateur. It's really weird, but like Magic Bullet looks, right? There's like this whole grading suite of looks. And a lot of people use the same effects and they don't really change them. And all that stuff like is based on your baseline image, right? It doesn't analyze your footage and like make it fit perfectly with that. It's like you're just applying effect to footage that's already there. I don't know if that makes sense, but essentially it's not, it's going to look like crap is what it's going to look like if it's not customized for that shot. And even then, if you're just using the same preset as everyone else, it's probably not going to look the best. We used to joke about Mexicali. I don't know, that was a look at some point, and it didn't look good. And the reason it didn't look good is because it's not a look that I'd seen anywhere that someone else had like proven looked good. There's stuff that was similar, you know, Mexicali was inspired by other things that were of a particular style and genre, but nothing actually looked like that. And the stuff that did look like that looked like crap. And so anytime I saw it, because when I was young, I did that. I played around with tool sets and I made stuff that looked amateur because I was an amateur. And it's the same pattern that repeats itself over and over and over again as more and more people get into this. You know, every day someone's like deciding they want to be a video professional and they make all these mistakes. And the best thing you can do is just to look at the stuff that already exists and say, what are they doing? Let me see if I can do that. Because that looks really cool and that's on TV and that's an Apple commercial or a Nike commercial or a Red Bull commercial. I want to make something that looks like that. Because otherwise it'll just look like everything else that the amateurs are doing. But that's like a step that like not a lot of people take. I didn't take that. I was just screwing around with a tool set, figuring out what buttons to push, and out popped, you know, ooh, a red apple and everything else is black and white or whatever. And it just looks silly. Or like, oh, like a really strong vignette, like for no reason, you know, just because it looks cool. It looks vintage. Kind of like Instagram filters, you know, people who just like putting filters on stuff willy-nilly. Like you can see like there's people who really dial it in and it looks really, really good. There's other people on Instagram who are just like putting filters on it because like it looks cool and you look at it and you're like, that doesn't look cool. Well, why? Because they're not spending the time to customize it and make it look intentional, I guess is a good way to put it. So, I mean, you look at stuff like Quentin Tarantino or George Lucas with Star Wars, like J.J. Abrams, another great one. Famous directors have done good movies, great movies in some cases. And a lot of times they're just ripping off stuff that came before them. Now, they're not straight up just stealing it, you know, one-to-one, but they're, you know, taking it, adding their own spin on it, mashing it up with something else. And like, that's okay, right? You know, artistic, creative freedom, liberty, all that jazz. Sure, that's fine, but they're still taking stuff that they thought was cool. Like, oh, it was really cool, that outfit or that soundtrack or that look. I'm going to put it in my thing and I'm going to do it, but I'm going to put my own spin on it, put my own flavor on it. That's okay. And that's what you have to do because then you can end up building and making your own style because that's the pattern you don't want to fall in. You don't want to fall into the pattern of just only being able to copy and never being able to create anything new. But when you're starting off, that's a good way to learn all those techniques because that'll teach you the tool sets. You'll learn, you'll get better, And you'll be making stuff that looks really nice because you're copying the people who've done it before you. It's really easy to kind of imitate that in that way. And again, you got to make sure you put your own spin on it. You don't want to just exactly one for one rip someone else off. But if you can be inspired by other people and do something in a similar vein, then you can start taking these kind of like artistic liberty things, because you're getting a feel for like what works and what people like, what audiences are used to seeing. And then you can do something off on the side. And maybe it's a failure. Maybe what you decided to do didn't work out, but your baseline is still there. You still got that good solid core foundation of what other people have done. And if, because everyone makes mistakes, right? Like you start off, you make mistakes, you figure out what works, you figure out what doesn't. And then you get to the point where you're making better and better and better stuff. And then you keep making better and better and better stuff. So if you're copying somebody who's at like the end of their career, they've kind of figured all that stuff out for you. And they're saying like, this is the best, this is what works. And you're like, okay, let's start there. Let's start at the end of what they did, because then you can just keep iterating on it from there. So that's what I'd say. Look to the masters, look to the people who are doing it and doing a good job at it. Don't just stick with your own devices and just playing around, because chances are it's just going to be another mistake. And you don't want to waste all your time making mistakes. You want to get to the end quick.